everyone. Welcome to another Tech Talk session with us. I am your host from Tech Jobs Fair. And I know this is unusual. We usually have it on Tuesday, but we have like a very special guest joining us today, which is why we have another Tech Talk session happening today. So today we are joined by Miss Kadza. Hi, Kadza. How are you doing today?
I'm fine. Hi, Tripti. Thank you so much for having me today. Well, I'm really excited to discuss with you today and to share my insights.
Yes, absolutely. We are super thrilled to have you join us. She is a communication scientist with extensive experience in advising international companies on internal and external communication. In 2016, she founded a social impact startup and since coached and mentored founders. Her expertise spans startups, communication, sustainability, and innovation, and she is also an experienced moderator for events and panel discussions. So you're on the other side of the table today, Kadza. How does that feel?
I love that. So I have so much to tell. So I'm happy not just asking questions, but also giving answers, hopefully insightful answers.
Yes, absolutely. So, to all of our viewers there, this is a little different, and I want to tell this aloud that all the founders out there watching us or aspiring founders, this session is for you. So make sure you watch us till the end. And if you have any questions or queries, please feel free to drop them in the comments section. And Kadza will, yes, definitely answer them. I wish I could, but we have Kadza here who will definitely answer it for you, right? So before we dive into the questions and conversation, Kadza, let's take a moment for you so that you can share your journey with us so far that you've had in the industry.
Yes, thank you, Tripti. I will. Well, I'm a communication scientist, and I also studied psychology and marketing. And I've then worked in corporate communications for many, many years in companies and also as consultant. And as you just said, I founded my own startup in 2016. It was a platform for retired people. It was a social impact platform, and we had lots of fun with it and lots of work, as all the people who are listening here probably know. Yeah, we went full throttle. We took part in funding programs and took advantage of all the learning opportunities that we've had. And my learning curve was like a hockey stick. I think in the startup field, this hockey stick is the most important one, this great learning curve. And so I learned to love the topic of founding a company and, above all, the startup scene itself, because all people who have ideas and visions and think in terms of solutions and not rather than in problems. And yeah, and after shutting down the startup in 2019 for several reasons, I wanted to stay in the startup sector and have been sharing my knowledge as a mentor, as a coach, and in programs so far. We're also doing hackathons and stuff like that. So that's the real fun stuff. And I'm also always looking for projects to invest in. Yes, that's my journey. That's my startup journey.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So, the topic for today's session is absolutely interesting, right? And because it talks about falling in love, although with your customer and your product, but a love topic is always nice to talk about. So, I have my first question for you, which is, what are the main reasons that founders do tend to overlook, especially on customer validation during their product development process?
Well, the main reason is this is my hypothesis or my experience, or one of the main reasons is that the founders are very much in love with their product. And this is in general, of course, great. You need to like or to love your product, of course. But when you're in love, you don't want to hear anything negative about your beloved. And that can turn out to become a problem. It's sometimes I have the impression it's a bit like avoiding prevention screening at the doctors because you want to avoid a potential negative outcome. So how does it work? A founder sees a problem and has an idea for a solution, then he or she might do some research, talk to people, looking for target groups, market size, and competitors. And if the results confirm the idea, the founder probably talks to lots of people. And many of them will say that the idea sounds interesting because it probably is. And because they are your friends or people who like you, or you are very passionate about telling about your idea. And this gives, the spirit goes to the people you're talking to. And then they will confirm or, they will talk very positively. And you, as founder, you're taking it because this is what you want to hear. This is what I want to say. And they don't want to insult us. But there might be people who say, well, I don't think that will work. And sometimes founders refuse critics and say, well, this is a typical grumbler, or they're just jealous or simply have no idea, which is sometimes the case, of course. But what I want to say, bottom line, is, do you know we are misguided by biases? Do you know the confirmation bias? It's confirmation bias is a natural tendency of people where we pay more attention to information that supports our existing ideas and interests, and we tend to believe in that more and ignore or sometimes downplay information that challenges our ideas. And this is very human to follow those biases. And when we have a founding project, when we are founders, we really need to avoid that. We need to reflect on us if we're biased at that moment. And there is another bias. Founders put a lot of time and efforts and resources to build a product or service. And if they don't check in the very beginning if there is a product market fit, if people love their product, if people are willing to pay for their product, in the end, if that doesn't work, there is a bias that is called escalation of commitment. So it's a tendency to continue committing on more resources to a failing project, mainly because you don't want to be wrong or accept that it won't work in the future. Because then, if it won't work, if you realize that, then all your efforts and resources you have already put in are lost. But it's a dilemma. It's lost, but if you put even more into it, although it won't work, you will lose more.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is how we people are. We tend to avoid difficult things. And, or positively said, we love to spend our time with things that are easy for us.
Absolutely. That you mentioned about product failures, right? Can you share some, instances with us from your experience where you've seen that lack of regular customer validation led to a product failure or underperformance?
Yeah, sure. Well, the first one is the one with the case of my own platform, of my own startup. We did so many mistakes that so many founders do. And one of them was we didn't start with an MVP or proof of concept. From the beginning on, we wanted to have that platform. We wanted to have a perfect platform. And we worked on that very hard and put all our efforts and resources into it. And then we shoveled heaps of new users onto the platform and wondered why hardly anyone was actively using it. And the problem was, of course, that if members didn't use the platform, we wouldn't be able to generate user data and learn from it. And at this point, we were running out of money and the platform was completely finished. And when you go and contact investors, they say, well, there is a finished product, a complete product, it doesn't work, so you won't ever get money for that. Getting back to the way that how we developed, we should have done an MVP or a proof of concept and working with the target group, because we did interviews, but actually, I must admit, we did the interviews as I said before. We wanted to be confirmed. We asked the things that where we were sure that we get positive answers, and we ignored a bit the negative answers. And this is not a good way. So I learned, this is why I'm emphasizing this topic so much. We did that mistake, and I saw so many startups that I mentored that also did this mistake. And you can talk to people and tell them that this can be a big mistake, but you see it in their faces if they need to experience it by themselves, or if they are listening to you and adapting.
Yeah.
I have lots of examples, but hopefully this one was a
Yeah,
good one.
I feel like it's relatable, and it's also because you have been through that experience, so you can actually talk about it, and it's really kind of you to share your experience with our viewers, what you've had and experienced. So because our topic says like fall in love with customers and don't fall in love with the product, but let's say as a founder, um, what do they think of first? Is it like the idea in their head, and then should they think about the product, or first do like market research, whether like they'll have like a good customer base on that, and then work on the product? How does that work?
Well, I would say in general, I wouldn't start with a product, but with a problem. So if you start, I would later on, I will introduce the method of design thinking, or we can already talk about that. You first start with a problem, and then you try to understand the people. How do they have that problem?
Hmm.
And how do they solve that problem now? Do they spend money on the solutions they are using now? How good are their solutions right now? And so you first of all you see the problem, and then you see how the people deal with that problem, and then you can adapt your idea to that problem. So if you start with an idea, because of course most times you do have a product idea, and then you go back to the problem. What problem do you want to solve with that? And this, of course, needs to have interviews with people who are having that problem, and conversations and market research, of course.
So, what kind of mindset shifts can the founders do, or they can adopt in order to prioritize, customer validation effectively?
Yeah. Well, the first one is, I would say, curiosity over assumptions. We all have our assumptions. Sometimes we don't even realize that it's just an assumption. We think that is true, that is reality. But it's always assumptions. If I think I do have a product and people will like it because I do like it, and I would need such a thing, it's only an assumption. Be curious. Ask the people. Look how they work with it, or how they solve the problem, as I said before. This is the first advice I would give. The second one, embrace iteration and not perfection. And this comes from my own experience. First, do step by step. Start with a dirty little small solution. Once you realize the problem and you have a solution for it, just do a small and cheap thing, and then let people try. Super important. Do that. It doesn't need to be perfect. We thought it needs to be perfect because otherwise people wouldn't use it, but that's not the case. If this is a real solution, it doesn't need to be perfect. People see that there is that it can be a first step, and you build that solution in that. And the third advice I would give is resilience to feedback. Don't take criticism personally. Just
Yeah.
show openness to feedback. It's not yourself someone is criticizing. It's just an idea, and it helps you.
Absolutely. And sometimes you never know, the feedback that comes out to be negative would actually be useful for you to actually work on the product and make it better, right?
Exactly. Absolutely. That's the point. You name it.
Yeah. And I think it's all about first stepping into your customer's shoe and seeing, how the problem is solved from the product that you're thinking of building. And that'll make a lot of difference there. And now, moving forward, would you like to elaborate on the methods that you were mentioning earlier? From for gathering meaningful customer insights during the stage of product development.
Yes, so especially in the beginning of a product development or startup development or business model development, I would always recommend like guided interviews and sort of focus groups. So guided interviews means that you have questions, and but they are quite open. You let the conversation go, because if you need to be open within these guided interviews, you need to have a goal. What do you want to reach? What do you want to know from that person? This for sure, and therefore you have several questions. But be open within that interview to let the person tell about, again, what I already mentioned: where is the problem and how does the person solve that problem, and what are the ideas about that problem and about the solutions that already exist. Do it very openly, because then you can get some insights and hints about your idea, about your solution. And this is the first thing: guided interviews or focus groups. That opens your perspective for, the perspectives of the customer, of the potential customers. And second, then you could do surveys, because you need to quantify that. If there are 2 to 3 people talking to you, or 5 or 10 people talking to you, then you need to know. You take the hints they have given to you, and then you ask a lot of people. And then you see the quantitative, how many people do have the same attitude towards that problem, how many people are solving it, how much money do they spend on solving that problem, and so on. This is done by surveys. And what I would also love to recommend is, this is a more sophisticated one. It's co-creation. So if you have a problem and you want to solve it, why not involving from the very beginning people of that target group? So people of the target group who are willing to work with you. That's a bit more sophisticated, because if you need to motivate those people to take part
Yeah.
of it, and that can raise costs sometimes. But yeah, there are always solutions if you want to do that. And that's the easiest way to implement the customer's view into your product.
Right.
But oh, sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't finish, because I just a thought came to my mind. When you do surveys or interviews, never ask the people if they would use or pay for your product. That doesn't work. They would probably. That's too hypothetical. It's a big risk of socially expected answers, that they say, yes, of course, I like that. No, you ask them, how do you solve this problem now? So don't talk about your product. First of all, talk about their problem and how their ways how to solve it. And of course, about their needs behind. What is their need behind when they are using certain problems? You know what a derivative benefit is? Like, when you buy, the most popular one is when you buy a car, you
Mhm.
the benefit of a car is you get from A to B, it's mobility. But the benefit behind is also very much status. You show through your car who you are.
Yeah.
And this is very important for products that come along with sort of status, or if people see the use of a product. This is a very important aspect, the need behind using that product. And this is also very important to find it out due to within interviews, guided interviews or focus groups.
Absolutely. There's one. I'm not sure, but there's like a famous fundamental formula for problem solving or crisis management, which is like five W's and one H. So does that work here as well?
The five W's and one H? I don't know that.
Yeah, it goes like what, who, what, when, where, why,
Yeah.
and then how.
Yeah, sure, sure. Absolutely, absolutely. And be creative. I mean, we're all human. You are a consumer as well. We are all consumers. We all have problems every day. We are all solving our problems. So just step into the shoes of the customer and the potential customer and try to find out what is emotion towards the thing that you later on want to sell. What is
Yeah.
the way how they deal with it?
Great. And a lot of founders, they tend to start big, right? And not take the baby steps, right? So, what practical steps can founders take in order to ensure that they're, regularly validating their product ideas with the actual target audience?
So true. Baby steps. I love that. This is something I would just put on the wall. And I would also, I recommend, it sounds funny, but do that. Hang a poster where every one of your team it can see it with, and you put a question on it. How do I know that the customer will like my product? Will like because it's in the future. If I would write, how do I know that the customer likes my product? Well, yes, if he or she buys it. But if you're still in the stage of development, then how do I know that the customer will like my product? You have to see it every day to consider, am I aware of every aspect that is important for the product market fit? This is it, the product market fit. Many products don't work because there is no product market fit.
Mhm.
Yeah, and of course, what I would also recommend too is baby steps. In I would say look up in your startup ecosystem if programs are provided that guide you through the creational process of developing a product or a business model. Because we, for instance, in Vienna, we are doing such programs, and they are also they are even funded. So many startup ecosystems do fund such products because it's very clear that people need a bit of a guidance so that they don't get lost within their own ideas. And you are working with peer groups. We call our program ESG Innovation Lab, and it's funded, and it's a 4 weeks program. And you start with understand what I just said, understand your customer, understand the need, understand the problem, and then it's ideation. You develop your product, and then you do a prototype, and then you test it. So this is the design thinking method, as I just mentioned. I think this is one of the best methods now in the market when you're a startup founder, or if you want to develop a new product or a new business model, go for design thinking, because design thinking puts the problem and the customer in the center of all your activities.
And that's most important part, right, in that
Absolutely.
entire journey. Because once that's figured, I think then it's just gonna the graph's gonna just go high. Let's talk about founding and starting up. We have resources, right? But when it comes to a lot of startups, a lot of founders, the resources are very limited because of many many reasons, right? And how can those startups with limited resources ensure they gather like a valuable customer feedback, or see the growth without a significant investment?
Yeah, I see the point. I see the point, and I went through it as well. But the methods I just mentioned, such as interviews or surveys, don't cost much or nothing at all. Interviews are for free if you just do it, and the surveys just cost the tool, the survey tool, but it's not too much. Focus groups are a bit more can be a bit more expensive because sometimes you need to pay the participants, and you have to have the venue and maybe some drinks or food. But the interviews and also expert interviews and sometimes even co-creation are very on a very low cost level. And if you don't invest, if you don't do it, then it might be by far more expensive in the end because your product might fail. But you know what comes to my mind? There's also something that I like to recommend. It's crowdfunding. So crowdfunding is very good in building communities because people are giving money for your product before it's there. They don't have anything, but they like the product so much that they already give money to you. And this is how you're building a community that likes the idea of your product. And out of this community, you can ask people for being participant for a focus group, or you can do surveys among this community. This is the crowdfunding already is a way of validating your product, because if no one gives money for it, well, you should think of it. Sometimes it's just the way how you present it, of course. It's also communication. The product might be good, but the way how you presented it was not attractive enough. And you never know, but could be one way to get to know. And this is not just a cheap way. It's where you receive money.
That you mentioned about crowdfunding, those are the people who are interested in the product already before it's launched, right? So does that mean that they have to come with an idea of that sort, which already has like a very niche audience base, so that they already know who might like the product, and then they just show it to them, and then this crowdfunding could happen?
Yes. Yes, exactly that. I mean, it's a way you have to, it's a lot of work, I must admit. Crowdfunding is a lot of work. You need a super presentation of your product. But once you've done it, this is already a proof of concept. If you need investors and they see there are people who are already giving money without having the product in their hand, or that's also attractive for investors. This is a way of validation where you can receive some money, and also having the confirmation you urgently need for your product.
It's like a golden buzzer.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
So, now coming to a very important aspect is about culture, right? So, what role does company culture play in order, like, to foster an environment that values customer feedback?
I love that question because, as I'm coming from corporate communications, and as a communication scientist, culture has always been a huge part of it. It's so important to create a culture. I mean, everyone does without knowing sometimes. And if you don't plan it a bit strategically, that might be not the best culture. So, in terms of the customer feedback, valuing the customer feedback, you know, I would say you should you should you should put an emphasis on a positive failure culture and on a positive or constructive feedback culture. These are the main aspects, I would say, that you should focus on when it comes to embracing other people's perspectives.
Yeah.
And concerning failure culture, Michael Jordan used to say, I failed over and over again in my life, and that's why I succeeded. So failure is just a step on the way. If you frame it as learning, then as a step on the way, and then failure is good. And the Silicon Valley mantra is fail faster to succeed sooner. So failure is very, very important. And how can you establish that? If a positive failure culture? Well, lead by example. Uh, Discuss on your own failures openly. Frame, as I just said, frame failure as learning. Share lessons learned from failures, also from other people. Make it transparent, And of course, build psychological safety. That is so important, that people know they can do experiments. And if they fail and learn from it, then it's great. It's good. And no one is judged. And of course, maybe set realistic goals and accept iteration. So if the goals are always too high and people fail due to that, that might be quite frustrating. So they need to be goals you sometimes can reach. I mean, we all want to grab the stars, and the overall goals and vision can be very, very high. But as you said, I love the word baby steps. Do set those baby step goals you can reach, and this is very motivating. And once you fail, it's all okay.
Yeah. It's just like a trampoline and just bounce back stronger.
Yeah, yes, love that. Yes, of course.
Because you're talking about failure, I just have a one question here. So let's
Mhm.
say, we have our first failure, let's say, right? And how long should you wait until you restart, or should you restart right away? What would be your suggestion?
How long after a
Absolutely.
failure should I didn't get a question. After a failure, how long is what?
No, I mean, like, let's say there's a product and then, they undergo failure, right? It doesn't do well. So should they wait, do some more market research, or should they just invest more money? Sometimes they have that thought, like, maybe I'll put more money and then it'll be better. But then maybe they're lacking the research, right? So is there any interval that they should wait for, or what's your suggestion on that before taking, bouncing back?
Always permanently try to figure out why. The why do people want to have that product? Why don't they want to have that product? Why doesn't it work? So if it comes to, if you know the optimum of process is that it's baby steps of development, and always validating every baby step of development, then failure is the failure of the product. You do failures, of course, within the process, but a failed product, then the risk is very, very low if you take the people on board, and if you permanently monitor, do they want it? Do they want to pay? Are they able to pay? Are they willing to pay? And do they like and do they use the product? So if you monitor it and if you do these baby steps, then there is no time in between. You see it immediately. If you implement that into the process of development, the permanent validation, you don't need to wait. You see it immediately.
And one important thing, so as a startup founder, before you bring the product out to public, and if you're like hiring, so what should be like the strength of the hiring process, like number of people you're hiring, or and once you're in this product planning and development stage, should it be like a one man army, or can they have like a couple of people join them? um, how can that work in terms of like strength in the company?
Look of what you can do best, and look of where you need someone else doing it, because it's not your key competence. Focus on your key competences, because you have lots of things to do, and let other people do the things that you're not expert in and you don't like, and let other people do that. So get in people with you have to focus extremely on, of course, the technical experience, the experience of the people, but also if they do fit into your, again, culture, into your vision and mission. So what is quite important is that you start, even if you're a small startup, even if you're a one man or woman show in the beginning, start with writing down shortly your vision and your mission, and the problem that you're be solving with your product, and the way how you want to work, and the way how you are. So your culture. So because if you try to hire people, if you try to attract people, they need to know how and who you are, and So the people need to fit into two two things. The first one is the technical. They need to all the things that you cannot do, you need someone else. And the second one, they need to fit into your culture, and they need to embrace your vision and your mission. So important. You need to talk about that, and also talk about what agenda they do have, and if this agenda fits into your ideas. Very important. Talk from the beginning to the people what they want to reach, and how they want to reach it. Does that fit to you? Then great, go for it. And do they have the skills that you don't have? Great.
Amazing. That was very insightful. Now, I have like one last question for you. How can
Great.
technology or digital tools that we all use nowadays enhance the process of customer validation in the product development phase?
Yeah. Well, I'm so excited about new technology, and we live in the age of AI. When it comes to generating and analyzing data, which is very, very important, we are making huge leaps forward. So, interviews can, as I taught, I mean, if I connect it to what we were talking about, interviews, for instance, can be recorded and summarized.
Yeah.
And with AI tools, communication with customers can, or potential customers can be personalized quickly and easily. This saves a lot of time and resources and money. I love that, and use it all. Use what you can get. Try it out. It's the future. However, we, I want to emphasize that understanding our customers, no technology can do that. Of course, quantitatively, the database, but in terms of in the beginning, developing your idea, seeing the problem, that needs creativity that the AI tools don't have yet. They will probably in the future, but now, trust in yourself, and let the AI tools support you in everything what is time consuming and what you hate to do.
Yeah, we still have that human emotions alive, which
Yes,
connects with other people, right?
absolutely, absolutely. And this is so important. If you do interviews with people, you see it, you see their faces, you can
Yeah,
interpret it better than any AI can do by now. By now, it will change, but by
you
now,
never know. The technology is evolving rapidly. It's like faster than cancer.
yeah, that's true. That's true. And I really
You
love
never
that.
know.
I love technology. I see the risks, and we always need to balance the risks and the chances. But I'm a person who always looks at the chances, and I love technology. Yes.
It also gives like a scope of enhancing our learning into so
Yeah.
many things.
Oh, sure, sure, absolutely.
Amazing. I think, Kadza, this brings us to the end of the session. Thank you so much for all the insights that you've shared. It was amazing. And I'm pretty sure it'll be very, very beneficial to all of our viewers out there. So, once again, thank you so much for your active participation and your insights. So, before we wrap this up, do you have anything that you'd like to add from your end that you've not already discussed?
Oh, well, well, to everyone listening here, rock on. Find good solutions that people need and love, and make the world a better place.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for joining us today, Katsa. It was really, really wonderful having you join us. And thank you to all of our viewers who are watching us today. And by any chance, if you missed or you just watched half, the session's recorded for you. So you feel free to watch it anytime, anywhere at your comfort zone. So yeah, once again, thank you all for joining us. And I will see you all next time. Until then, take care and bye bye.
Take care. Bye.